Hello, welcome back to SketchUp Assist. In this video, we're going to let Claude build this simple deck for us. All in all, it did a pretty good job. There are a few things that are off. We couldn't quite get the stair railing to work out right, and there's some imperfections on the railing. But all in all, it did a pretty good job on the footings and the framing. And we're also going to talk about some of the code compliance checks that you can do. So for example, this is the Tributary map showing the load that each footer is carrying and helping us ensure that we've sized the footers to the right size. So we'll talk about these things in this video, so stick around. Okay, let's start off with a simple prompt. Let's ask it to build a 12 by 16 code compliant deck for us. Okay, we see it's summarizing what was asked for here. It's like it's going to use IRC code. Kind of understands the layout. Now it's going to work on the 3D model. So since this is Claude right out of the box, and by that I mean I haven't created any special deck functionality within the MCP server, so it's going to come in and create some tools that it needs. Now in the future, I'm certain this won't be perfect. In the future, we'll build tools that are a bit more deterministic. And we'll rely on Claude just to decide which tools to call and passing the information that's needed for those tools. And not have Claude actually drawing the geometries. As we've talked in the past, those operations are not always deterministic, and we need deterministic operations in this case, which is why we implemented things like the Medic plugins previously. Okay, so it looks like it has created a surface plane here, but the footers are not looking good. They're way too deep. They should be setting slightly proud of the grade here, or at least flush with the grade. Okay, so it's doing pretty good with the drop beam and the joist. And it looks like it's using, okay, so it's using 2x10s for the drop beams, 2x10s for the joists. It is including some blocking in between the joists, placing the blocking over the beam. So far the main issue is that the Z elevation, which we struggle with continuously here, is problematic. But otherwise, it looks like it's pulling in the right components. Now, there's some details missing, like there are no hurricane ties here. At this point, it hasn't, I'm not sure what this is supposed to be. If that's an attempt at some fastener to connect the post to the beam. Okay, so it's placed the deck boards, but again, it's completely losing track of the Z positions. Okay, so it's going to try to do the handrail now. I'm not sure how this is going to work since the positioning is off on everything. Okay. Yep, so the top rail is way above the deck. Yeah, so pretty bad. I'm going to stop it here. So just sort of innately, Claude really struggles with understanding exactly how these components should fit together. Like qualitatively, it's there. It certainly has sort of placed everything, if you just think about layers, correctly. But it doesn't seem to have the knowledge to know that, you know, the footer should be setting flush with the ground or just above it, for example. The post should be setting on top of the footer. The drop beam should be setting on top of the post. The joist should be setting on top of the drop beams. Actually, it got the drop beams right. The drop beam and joist look pretty good. Their relative position, but they were, of course, too low in the model. Now here it goes, probably not a bad idea. It's wiped the model out completely, but the question is, when it comes back, will it come back with a better solution or just redo what it did before? Actually, this is looking pretty good so far. So it has those footers just a little proud of the grade, which I generally like to see. Okay, so far so good. It actually looks like it didn't notch the posts, and the beams don't quite run all the way over. But as a first pass, I'm not hating it. Oops. Certainly, it's doing much better in terms of alignment. I'm not sure why we've got double joists on the outer edge here. So much better so far. There is a little issue here, like it would, generally you're not going to set these posts past the outer edge of the framing. I think that's why the drop beam is a little short, is that this post is supposed to be setting in. So I think the drop beam is actually lined up. Let's hide this, for example, for a second. Yeah, that drop beam looks good. It's just that the posts are set too far out. Okay, much better job so far. Now, obviously, we don't want to have to coach it like this, which just calls out that we're going to need some specialty functions in here, of course, to build these structures. I'll ask it to remove these knee braces. I don't think that's really relevant for what we're trying to do here, and it's just going to cause confusion. Okay, much better here. Much better. Some issues here, but not the end of the world. And what I see very often is these corner posts. It sets a single post corner to corner, which is a physically unrealistic alignment. This actually looks pretty good. It's got the post on each side butted up to each other, but also fully in contact with the rim joists. Let's see. Well, it's a little off. It's a little off. They should be slit. Each one should slide down their respective rim joists. But all in all, a much better version than the first one. You could definitely work with this if you wanted it to create it as a starter, and then come in and refine it. We could, of course, refine it by Claude. I'm not going to spend a lot of time refining things today. This is really just a demonstration of how it does out of the box. We could certainly come in and tell it to slide these posts around a little bit. We could tell it to miter these top rail joints, but not really the point of this. And ultimately, we don't want to have to tell it to do those things. Ultimately, we want a set of tools that will just do those right out of the box. So it's going to work on steps, and it adds a concrete landing pad. Okay, let's drop just a set of steps in here. I think it's still working on railing. Actually, these look pretty good. Riser's a little problematic. I would not have the top of the riser exposed there. I'd have the treads over the top of those. Let's see how the 7 3/16. 7 3/16. So it looks like it's doing a good job of keeping all of these consistent. Concrete pad placement, a little problematic here. I'm not sure if it's drawn stringers in here. Let's see if we can look from the back side. I don't think it's drawn stringers. I think it's just kind of building a box here. I'd have that pad slid out, stringers in here, resting on the pad with about 3 feet of pad in front of the steps. If I were going to design this, so that's the final. Now, it didn't add railing to the steps, and I'm not going to push this. We'll leave it here. There's one other thing I want to take a look at, but all in all, it did a pretty good job. Let's ask it to remove the braces. And I am going to ask it to actually correct these posts. Hopefully it knows what I mean. I said footing posts. I want the whole footer shifted. Now we would generally notch out one side and shift this beam to one side or the other. Again, I'm not going to split hairs on what it's doing here, but those are the sort of things we'd want to have packaged in and some proper deck tools. But all in all, I think this is a reasonable deck. So what I want to take a look at now, we focus a lot on what it's building in SketchUp. There's a lot more value that we can bring in here. For example, it is taking into account code compliancy, so it's done some things on here. For example, adding the railing that we didn't ask for because that's a compliancy thing. But there's a lot more that we can do around that design before it ever creates a 3D model. So what I'm going to ask it to do is to create a 2D map of the tributaries. You can put in whatever you want here. And I also want to, the footer sizing. I want to include the footer sizing considering our soil supports 1500 PSF. Now, I wouldn't normally put 4 footers in here. I'd probably go with a 3. But let's see what the tributary weights look like. Certainly, if you come back with a result that shows that you can't quite support it with the given footer size that you want to use, obviously adding additional footers is a solution to that. So, for example, we might be able to get away with 12-inch footers if we're going to have 4 on each beam. Okay, so it's creating our diagram here. This is the outline of the deck. I believe this should represent the beams, these lines here and here. Okay, there are footers coming in. So we have 8 tributaries across this deck. Okay, and it looks like we have a mix. We have a mix of footer sizes required. Now, generally don't do that. We generally kind of lay this out so that we have one size. We just auger all the holes the same diameter. So let's take a look at what we can do. So there's just some notes down here it's adding in. Let's come back up here, take a look at this diagram. So yeah, these in the center are requiring 16s. What we can do is shift the outer footers in a little bit. But first off, we could just put 16-inch footers on the outer side, and that would be fine. They would be oversized. But anyway, I generally don't set these footers on the outer edge when we're doing a drop beam. It doesn't give you a lot of margin for error. You hit a lot of rocks and roots when you're putting these footers in, and it can shift those things around a little bit. So we typically come in about 1.5 feet anyway. Now, when we do that, sliding these in 1.5 feet is going to slide the boundary for the tributary over a little bit, which will increase the tributary areas for our outer footings, but it will decrease them for the inner footings. So let's see what the result of that is. So let's shift the outer footers. Okay, so it's going to recalculate all the layouts here. Good that it thought this. That's the right thing. Okay, so it's shifted those footers. Now, the reality is it should recenter everything. It won't really matter so much, but I wouldn't have this awkward layout. Would have them evenly spaced. But let's see what this result is, and then we'll ask it to fix that. Okay, we're now setting it a mix of 12 and 14s. Again, we would just run everything 14, but what I suspect is we could probably get rid of 2 of those footers, go with 1 in the center, and probably be able to get away with 16-inch footers. So we'd have 6 16-inch footers. So let's try that. Let's try one more thing. Okay, so it's removing those center posts, and it's going to come back. Should come back with 1. And while that's at it, let's just take a look. So we still have a 2x10 here. We'll ask it if that's okay still. Okay, our new map is coming up. Looks like we have 6 tributaries now, 3, 3. There are 3 footers. All right, 16-inch. So now we could probably just look to do 16-inch footers across for all 6. So on our center post, we have 11% margin. So 2,094 pounds is the capacity for the 16-inch pier. We're putting 1881 on it. Yeah, and so this is what we were going to ask on that drop beam. So here's some options. Yeah, we would upgrade those outer for sure. And it gives us an option of 2 2x12s or 3 2x10s. So let's upgrade the drop beams. And then fingers crossed it doesn't blow up the model. Let's see what happens, because it does have to make, well, in theory, it doesn't have to make any major adjustments other than just removing these and sticking a new one in. It never cut out these posts, so that shouldn't be an issue. So we should see those drop beams disappear here any moment. Oh, looks like it happened quick. Okay, there we go. 11 1/4. So we have our 2x12 drop beams in. No issue on spans there. Summary here. Could have specified to just go ahead and make all the footers 16-inch, but for now this looks pretty good. So that's it for this video. We're going to stop there. So we've created our deck using sort of out of the box Claude. Now we know there's some imperfections in here, but all in all, I'm pretty happy with the job it did. I think on the framing, it did a pretty good job. There's some details missing, like the connectors and things like that. The railing has a few little issues, and we didn't quite get the stair railing to come in right first pass. Again, not going to belabor this to try to coach Claude through creating that. The reality is we'll get it on this run. If you build another one, you'd have to go through that same process. Ultimately, not where we want to be. We want to be in a place where we have the proper tools that do it right every time. So this was just more of an exploration of what could be done, and to introduce some of the capabilities beyond just the model itself around, for example, code compliance and creating documents that ultimately could go into your permit application, for example. So that's it for now. Thanks for sticking around. Hey, if you're finding the channel useful or interesting, please consider subscribing. And if you have any feedback for any of our content, please consider leaving comments. Thank you.